revisions or changes to the minutes? Do you approve those?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and approve those. Lori, you're up federal legislative update.
Morning, y'all. First, I wanted to announce that HUD is going to be able to come and visit the city next week when they're here for the City Alliance meeting. And I don't think this would happen without your visit here last month. So that's great. They're going to hope to visit a couple of sites. And I know Roberto and Liz are working along the housing department to put that together. Congress is finally back from recess. They're going to start to actually draft the appropriation bills next month. We already know what Congressman Crow requested, and we should be hearing from the senators either today or next week. They should be posting on their websites what they requested from their constituents. Aurora Water was here this past week for the Colorado Water Congress. So I had a chance to see Kathy Kitzman. We had a great luncheon with other water utilities across the state and also with congressional delegation. And Kathy, I don't know if she's on today. Yes, she is. But she had a chance to meet with the new staff from Congressman Crow and Congresswoman Patterson, who's new to the delegation as well. They're excited to work with the city on our water issues. Any questions?
Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions or any follow-up that you want for Lori to do during this time? Okay. That's it, Lori. So thank you so much.
Have a great weekend.
Too. Thanks. Okay, our next item is congressionally direct expending update. Liz, this is on you.
Yes. So as Lori mentioned, our federal electeds have put in several requests for the project that we submitted. So I did get word from Congressman Crow that he has submitted for the library project, as well as the pressure valve replacement project and the 9 Mile project. And then I did get confirmation from Hickenlooper's office very recently that they will be submitting both of our water projects, the library project and the 9 Mile bridge. Just a reminder, this isn't guaranteed funding, but as we have all of our requests in, I'm pretty optimistic.
Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions on that item?
No.
Okay, I think that's great news. I mean, we got some last year of this current cycle, so hopefully we might get these. So that's great. Okay, state legislative update. Peggy, Cammie, and Totsi.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. Oh, hi, Cammie.
Hi. Good morning. We're in the last 20 days of session and bills are starting to move quickly. Everything's a little chaotic around here. Since our last meeting, the budget was finalized and has been sent to the governor. And then Peggy is here. She's going to walk you through a couple of bills and then I'll circle back.
Hi, sorry, we're teaming up today. Couple updates for you. Senate Bill 213 was pulled from the appropriations calendar this morning. This is the legislation that is the governor's affordable housing land use bill. Senator Zenzinger has expressed concerns with the bill. So it was not heard this morning in appropriation. Leadership has indicated that they will start removing legislators that are not supportive of the bill from appropriations. So that will add quite the political dynamic. I can see Councilman Zvonek's head exploding as I say that. So that'll be very interesting to watch. It'll probably be back in appropriations on Monday. Obviously, if that's what they start to do, it's going to be quite chaotic. And the Republicans have said that they will hold things up pretty dramatically. So more to come on that, but that should be very interesting and could be quite the turning point in the Senate. In terms of juvenile beds, as you know, we've been working on this all session. It seems like there may be a crack in the armor and we may make some at least minimal progress. We've been working with the department and Representative Doherty, who carried the original bill that limited the number of beds. She has indicated that she would be willing, and some of the progressive stakeholders would accept putting 237 beds in play. The additional beds over the 215 that are currently in statute would be emergency beds, but the court would be allowed to use those beds. And it sounds like there isn't going to be a hurdle for those beds to be used. I do think one of the other positive things that have come out of it, even though this is pretty minimal increase in beds, is a huge amount of education. I mean, the Joint Budget Committee has really become aware of the issue, and a lot of the legislators have. So although it's a small increase that we're hoping to get through before the end of session, I do think it started the conversation. We should see a bill next week introduced on that, but we'll keep Liz and the team posted on that piece. And then Senate Bill 75, which is the bill that deletes witnesses' names from criminal justice records for children. That bill passed out of appropriations this morning and should start to move pretty rapidly through the process.
Peggy, can I just ask a couple questions, and I'm going to pass it over to Councilmember Zvonek. Just a couple questions. So with the Senate Bill 213, I know you stated that there's going to be some things going on. May 6th is the end of the session. If they don't,
May 8th.
May 8th, okay.
Yep.
I've been saying it wrong because I've been putting May 6th, but that's a Saturday. Okay. May 8th is the end of the session. If it continues to go in the way that it may go, in a chaotic way, will they have to maybe possibly go into a special session, or they're going to try to avoid that?
I don't think so. I think they will definitely try to avoid it. That's an interesting question, though. I wonder, as you say that, I'm wondering, if the governor doesn't get his Senate Bill 213, does he push and bring back a special session on those issues? We have not had that discussion yet. I have not heard it brought up, but I think that's a good question. I'll let you know if I hear anything, but haven't heard anything to that end so far.
Okay, and then just a question on the juvenile beds. I know it's minimum. It looks like we only probably get about 22 additional beds.
Right.
I know that the council, we did the resolution. Even though we get those with the non-bed cap, can we still maybe try to start advocating for that? We did kind of do a resolution, and I mean, I do want to kind of keep it in the minds of the legislators for the next legislative session to maybe consider just the no bed cap, which is a resolution that we did pass, to work on maybe that. And I just wonder if that's a possibility during the off-session season.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by, I do think there was a lot of progress made on educating legislators this session, even though the end result may be very minimal. I think it was an important discussion to have. Realistically, I'm not sure that we'll ever get the cap completely removed, but to continue to increase it at least to a level that's reasonable and functional, I think certainly is a possibility. So we'll definitely keep those conversations going. And hopefully too, the department will add this as part of their budget request next fall with the governor.
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions on Peggy's update?
Yeah, I do. And so staying with the juvenile beds in the vein of continuing to, because I think we all knew going into it that the right policy would be no cap, but that wasn't realistic. One of the questions I do have is a potential compromise, even with the limited beds. One of the points of feedback that we would get is that, well, not all the beds are filled, and which is true, because in some of the rural parts, they're not reaching their limits, but in places like Arapahoe, in our jurisdictions, 17th and 18th, they are. Is there a possibility to keep the new level, the new statewide cap, but rather than if the 18th or 17th reaches their capacity, right now, under the way that it works, is that if we wanted to use another bed, you'd have to ship the juvenile to Pueblo or wherever has capacity. Could we just make those? Is there a compromise to say, hey, look, if the 18th needs 2 more, and the whatever jurisdiction out in the rural parts of the state has 5 extra beds, can we just trade it on paper? Because I think the concern with moving the kid is that their parents would be like, whoa, you're shipping our kid to Steamboat or to wherever. And it's like, no, we're still going to keep them here, and we're staying within the statewide cap. It just gives the DAs flexibility to essentially trade or to request more beds on paper. I don't know if that's a realistic possibility, but it might be a way without extending the cap beyond what they are doing to actually create more space in the places where it's needed.
And my understanding is that these additional beds will be floating.
Okay.
Kind
Okay.
of similar,
That makes
but I
sense.
think that's a really good question. I mean, could we make all the beds floating?
Yeah. I think that would be, I mean, because again, you know, it was the ACLU or somebody said, oh, well,
Yes.
we're never reached the statewide cap. Okay. But because they know realistically that if there was a kid in the 17th or 18th, we're not going to ship them across the state because their parents, rightfully so, would say, no, they should be here. So that would be great if we could at least have that conversation. I think it would go, you know, toward our goal of just addressing, because the reason why we wanted no cap was to address the realities of what's happening in our community. Having all of those beds be flexible, if you will, could go, you know, actually make more progress and still keep a cap in place, even though I don't prefer it.
I think that's a great comment. I'm happy to bring that back to everybody and get some feedback from it.
Okay, and then on the 213, I had my Dr. Cog meeting earlier this week. I mean, it doesn't matter which, and Councilmember Lawson, you probably heard this at CML. It doesn't matter if it's Boulder or Colorado Springs. Municipalities, counties do not like this. I don't know who likes it. I have yet to run into somebody that outside of the governor's office that really is like, I love this thing. Local governments have stood strong against this, whether it's counties or cities, and it's whether it's a progressive city or a more conservative city, they do not like it. So I hope that the message is sent. It's unfortunate here. Leadership sounds like they're just going to pile drive this through no matter what, including removing people from committee, which it's not the first time I've seen it happen. I know you all have seen it happen before too, but it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's going to be fascinating to see how this comes out. I mean, and we've talked about this in the past. It's just kind of frustrating because I think there was a real opportunity to address an issue that could bring everybody together on both sides of the aisle. And unfortunately, that's not how this bill was handled this session. So we'll see how it shakes out, but more to come for sure.
Great, thank you.
Thank
No
you.
other questions.
Okay, if it's okay with you, I'll continue on with my update. Senate Bill 201, which was the mineral rights pooling bill, was up in Agriculture Committee yesterday, and that bill was postponed indefinitely, which means it was killed, died on a vote of 2 to 5. So also the Cora bill, which is the access to government records, Senate Bill 23-286 was up in committee yesterday, passed committee and was amended to appropriations. They're still working on amendments for second reading, including a sexual harassment provision. So we'll continue to watch that closely. And then the overdose prevention bill was up in committee yesterday and the mayor was up at the Capitol. That bill was laid over. There are still concerns from the governor's office on that piece of legislation. So that is why that was laid over. I know that Judge Day probably wants to talk about House Bill 23-1222, but it passed out of House Judiciary on Tuesday. So Judge Day, I'm happy to continue on or turn it over to you.
Judge Day, do you want to go ahead since we're talking about that bill? Go ahead, and I know you have your own line item on the agenda, but since we're on that bill.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. And thank you, Cammie. I appreciate that. Just to give you a heads up and an update on 1222, just as Cammie said, it passed out of House Judiciary on the 18th on an 11-1 vote. It was scheduled for floor work this morning at 9. I haven't checked to see where it is in that process this morning, but it's on the House floor this morning. There were 2 amendments. The one amendment amended the other amendment, and that's L002. Really what that amendment was just to clarify as to the application of the Victims' Rights Act to each department of the criminal justice process, both court administration, judicial, prosecutor's office, and both amendments passed. I believe you have in your packet, or it was forwarded to you, L001 which was the amendment. Long and short of it is that we'll continue to be allowed to prosecute domestic violence cases in municipal court with certain conditions, which we're going to have to bring forward ordinances to adopt domestic violence prosecution in our court, in addition to the VRA, in addition to the requirements of mandatory protective orders, which we already do. So it was good news, I think, and we'll have to wait to see what happened today on the floor in the House, and then it'll be sent over to the Senate.
And it is, Judge Day's correct, it is scheduled for House third reading this morning. It's a little ways down the calendar, so we'll definitely update you on how that goes.
Okay. Thank you, Judge Day. And then we're going to probably review this because I know that there's going to be a position reconsideration. So I'll let Liz, when we get into that, I'll let Liz go through that. But thank you so much for that update on that bill. Continue, Cammie. And Councilmember Zvonek, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
no, go ahead.
Cammie?
I think that Council Member Lawson wraps up kind of my high level overview update. Happy to answer any questions if I can, and thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, are we going to have Tatsi on here giving any updates?
No, she's tied up on the House floor.
Okay.
So I was reporting on the overdose prevention bill for her. I know she's been watching that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Cammie and Peggy. I appreciate it. Judge Day, you're up.
Again, thank you. Just to give you an update on 1132, which is the data sharing bill, it did pass out of the Senate on a 30-5 vote, and that vote was on the 13th. It was sent back to the House because there was an amendment to that changed the makeup of the task force, where they added 3 new members to it. At the time that we testified before Senate Judiciary, that was brought up. I personally endorsed and thought that it was a good idea to change the task force to add the 3 additional people. One was from the Child Protection Ombudsman's office, one was from Department of Human Services, and the third was a victim advocate position. I thought it was a good suggestion. I hope that I didn't overstep. I did not say that it was with the support of the city of Aurora. I just endorsed it personally. So it changed the makeup of the task force, and that's why it's back to the House, just because it changed the makeup. Nothing else significantly changed. And so it's scheduled for the House floor today, again at 9 o'clock. It's somewhere on the agenda this morning for the House floor. I anticipate that there won't be any major issues with the added number to the task force. Other than that, I know there's a lot that is moving forward pretty quickly. Happy to answer any specific questions about any of the other bills that the committee's interested in.
Well, Judge Day, I just have I'm just happy about the data sharing bill. I know that was something, and I'm glad it's moving forward. Hopefully from those recommendations from the task force, we can move even further in the next legislative session, but it's a big step from where we were at. So I appreciate your work on that and everything that you've done on that bill in particular, and all of the others as well. So,
and I appreciate your leadership and this committee's leadership on it as well. I mean, I think it was well received down at the Capitol. It did come up in other discussions. Specifically, it came up in testimony about 1222, the DV bill. In that I think there's a lot of crossover between those two, and there was some concern about courts not sharing information about DV cases, which we as a group, when I say we, a bunch of judges that from courts that prosecute DV cases, try to reassure and bring to the attention and kind of clarify the issue with Rep. Duran and Rep. Weissman that we do report DV cases. We all do, but there's more that needs to be done regarding data sharing amongst municipal courts and state courts.
Yeah, definitely. Councilmember, thank you so much, Judge Day. Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions for Judge Day?
Nope, not on that one.
Okay, thank you so much, Judge Day. I appreciate it. Okay, Jeffrey Moore. So thank you so much. I just kind of wanted you to be on this call. It looks like the bill died. So, but just to kind of give you, if you have any summary or anything that you wanted to address with that particular bill?
Thank you, Councilmember Lawson. Yes, I did testify last Thursday. I would say that there was a lot of testimony. There was some confusion on the topic and the details, even among the people that were testifying, and even among the committee a little bit. I think one issue that people maybe don't quite understand is there's a perception that the concept of force pooling is somehow taking minerals from someone without payment, which is not the case. Force pooling simply means that you are being forced to be a financial partner with the operator in the drilling of the well. That's what it means. There were some amendments offered right before the testimony last week, last Thursday. They were sort of in conflict, so they laid the bill over to yesterday. And then, of course, it was ended in the committee yesterday. There was talk of continuing in the summer to work with stakeholders and drafting a new bill in the future, but it did not make it out of committee.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your advocacy on that. It was a very complicated topic, as you've seen when we discussed it at the study session, but I appreciate your efforts in explaining that and actually going down to the Capitol to testify. So thank you so much for that. Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions for Jeffrey Moore?
I don't, just echo what you said, which is thanks, Jeffrey, for bringing that to our attention and for your work on it.
Yep, thank you so much. Okay.
Welcome.
Okay, Liz, you're up. Now it's time for our legislative positions.
Yes, thank you all so much. So I wanted to start off just giving a brief additional update on the land use bill. There were a multitude of amendments that had been adopted during the committee. So you all have been provided a summary breakdown of kind of what they were. To go along with what Peggy and Cammie were saying, that there are going to be a lot more amendments that are coming. We've heard that directly from a lot of the staff working on the bill, more amendments to clean up the language and amendments to the amendments that were passed recently as well. So staff is really looking into getting more clarity and information on what these changes mean overall, and being able to kind of continuously provide feedback and monitor and track what these changes are going to mean for the city. We are not recommending a position change at this time. But I just wanted to ensure that you all know we're tracking this. It's become a lot more interesting than when it first started out, as Peggy had mentioned, but happy to go through these if you like. But as I mentioned, there's going to be more amendments coming.
Okay. Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any amendments or particular amendments you want Liz to go over, or?
No, we had a very long conversation about them at Dr. Cog the other night. We went amendment, but we were there till 10 o'clock going through each one of them. So I'm good, but thank you.
Okay. Okay, Liz, we're ready to go with the other positions that are in the packet. And Liz, just a question about the revised packet. Councilmember Zvonek, are you seeing the positions in your packet? Because I'm not seeing it in mine.
I don't.
Okay, the positions were not in the packet. So I just wanted to let you know, I see all the bills, but the positions that we usually have in your nice summary format are not in this revised packet. So just wanted to let you know that. And
No.
Okay, so I don't have it with me. So you'll have to kind of go through. I can look at the bill titles, but you're gonna.
I will do a screen share because I have the document. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what had happened. It was in the initial packet that we looked at, so I'm not sure what happened between that and the revision. I will say in the revision, we did add in a bill from water, so not really sure what happened in East Curb. I do deeply apologize for that. So I can share my screen with you all, so you can kind of see what the document was.
Okay, and then just for a process note, for transparency, because I got this, actually, this is on the website, and I think we need to put that packet with those revisions so the public can see those as well.
Yes,
I found it in an old packet too, or in one that I don't know which email I just opened, but it was a different one, and it's in this one.
Is it in the old packet, Councilmember Zvonek?
Yeah, I think I got 3 emails on them, but different ones. So this one has it, whichever one I opened.
Okay, I can go into the old packet, Liz, but you can go ahead and start.
Okay, I still have it on my screen just for transparency's sake, but the first bill is Senate Bill 23268, 10-year transportation plan information. So this legislation would ensure that CDOT provide timeframes for projects and estimated costs, as well as having a designated department contact to receive and respond to information from state and local government, especially state and local officials. It would also direct CDOT to create a dashboard that would indicate in detail projects and programs that are being worked on in the transportation plan, as well as the time frame for each project, as well and total funding levels. Staff recommendation is actively support, as this would provide a lot more coordination and collaboration between CDOT and local governments and provide clarity on the projects that CDOT is working on. Having the designated contact would be incredibly beneficial to get any questions and to have any additional questions answered and any other information that needs to be gathered. Staff believes that these changes are all value adds and will be and is needed to increase project coordination and transparency.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions, and do you support the staff position is it actively support?
Yes.
On this one? Yes,
Yeah, no questions, and I agree with that position.
and I agree as well.
Great. So the next bill is House Bill 23-1286, increased penalty cruelty to police and service animals. So this bill would increase the penalty and fines for cruelty and aggravated cruelty to service animals, police working dogs, and police working horses. The staff is recommending actively support, as hopefully this would deter or disincentivize suspects from injuring police working dogs. And then police working dogs are costly to purchase, train, and maintain. So we want to protect those investments from the city.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you actively support you have any questions, and do you support the staff's position of actively support on this bill?
No questions, and agree with the position.
I agree as well with the position.
Okay. Thank you. The next bill is House Bill 23-1222, cases of domestic violence in municipal court, the one that Judge Day had mentioned. As he discussed all of the amendments that have been introduced and changed, I won't go over them for you. Staff is recommending actively opposed to actively support. As with the new amendments that have been suggested and supported by the city, it makes sense that we support the bill, as we did receive the changes that we had asked for, and the city's concerns have been mitigated. I will open it up to Judge Day to provide any additional commentary or any other discussion on the position recommendation.
Judge Day, do you have any other additions you want to add, and anything about the changing of position?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the amendments, and that would in my recommendation, change the position from an actively opposed to actively support.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the specific amendments or the changes to the bill.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions for Judge Day about the amendments, and do you support the revised position from actively opposed to actively support?
Yeah, I'm fine with the position. I do have one question that just with the changes, if it passes as amended, what impact does that have practically on your court in terms of caseload? Any?
Thank you for the question. And I don't believe that it will impact the caseload, but it will impact how we handle those cases, in that there will have to be active victim notification for the VRA. So there will be impact with the prosecutor's office. How that's going to be handled and the impact, is it going to be either a need for additional people potentially, or reassignment of resources within their office? I don't want to speak for Ms. Heckman and her office, but we will have to comply with the VRA and notification of victims. Again, the last 2 years, we're looking at about 1,200 plus cases that have been filed with our court for domestic violence. And so we'll have to have active victim notification participation with the VRA. One of the things that will have impact is that we will now, and it's required by the bill, probably, well, not probably, we will, when the bill takes effect in January, need to go to more of a vertical prosecution type of format and docketing scheme with our court. We can handle that with just kind of reassignment within the court and how we docket things. So
Okay.
there are some practical implications of the bill, but from any more than that. That's about it. Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you.
You bet.
So Councilmember Zvonek, you're,
I'm good with the position.
okay.
Yep.
And
No
I
other
am,
questions.
I'm as well with the revised position of actively support.
So the last bill I have to bring to you today is Senate Bill 23-291, Utility Regulation. So because this bill is a little bit more complex, I did prepare a more fully detailed and expanded summary in the following pages, which are up on the screen now. And I believe Cindy put in the chat that these are all located on page 21 of the packet. So just so you know, but if the committee is accepting, I would go through the extended summary and then the discussion of staff analysis.
Okay, I would like for you to go through the summary and staff analysis on this
Okay.
bill, just based on an email that the whole entire council received.
Yep, so per the information that the city had received, we had an internal analysis through multiple departments of this bill and what is detailed in it. So as a summary, the bill requires the Public Utilities Commission to make several changes. So including to establish mechanism, guidelines, and rules for rate case expenses of investor-owned utility or gas utilities that they may recover from the utility customers. More specifically, that it would prohibit investor-owned electric or gas from recovering costs, specifically detailing more than 50% of annual total compensation or of expense reimbursement for the utility board of directors, tax penalties or fines, advertising public relations expenses, lobbying or other expenses related to lobbying, organizational and membership dues, travel, lodging, food, or beverage expenses, as well as gifts or entertainment expenses. So if the investor-owned utility would try to recover these prohibited costs, the commission would be required to do an assessment against the utility. So in addition to that, the commission would be mandated to adopt rules to help protect investor-owned gas utility customers from volatility of gas prices, as well as establishing a mechanism to create financial incentives for investor-owned utilities to improve electricity production cost efficiencies. And then lastly, so each regulated gas utility would remove from the utility's rate tariffs any incentives offered to an applicant applying for natural gas services, as well as several other reporting and transparency efforts that would be made through the commission. So essentially looking at this and evaluating this bill, per staff recommends no position on this legislation, as it was determined that it does not impact the city of Aurora's infrastructure or processes.
Thank you so much for that. Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions on this analysis on this particular bill?
Yeah, no. So I don't agree with the position. The only reason why, just like the AQC rule, where I understand that the rule itself didn't impact the city because local or government buildings were exempt, but it still has an impact on our residents and our ratepayers. And I think that this legislation has the same thing, right? It might not impact the city directly, but the consequences. I mean, we're mandating, or the state is mandating, all sorts of requirements on renewable portfolio standards on these utilities, and then saying, oh, by the way, we want you to do this and to put in place all of the infrastructure, and then you're not going to be able to recapture costs. I think this is. I think we should at very least take an opposed if asked, if not just an actively opposed position. I would be fine. I'd prefer to do actively opposed, but if not, at least a opposed if asked, just because I do believe it will have an impact on our ratepayers, even if it doesn't impact the city directly.
So I'm gonna kind of go in a different stance with Councilmember Zvonek, and I think I'm gonna support the city position. I think right now with all of the things that are, I know that I get people, residents contacting me. I can even look at my own utility bill, and I think taking any position on this bill would not be good at all because it's Excel. So I think that it doesn't impact the infrastructure like what Councilmember Zvonek is saying. I think we should really not take any position on this bill at all. I think it sends a message to me that we're kind of supporting their lobbying efforts if they try to do that, and they're using consumer dollars to do so, which I have a real problem with on that part of the bill. So I take a different position on that. We don't have Councilmember Jurinsky here. I don't know if she's on.
I'm
but-
here. I'm here.
Okay, so Councilmember Jurinsky, we need for you to be on this bill because I'm with the city position. Councilmember Zvonek wants to take the opposed position.
Let me just read it real quick. Yeah, I'm also going to oppose it.
Okay, that it looks like that's the thing of the committee to oppose. Again, I just want to stipulate that I take the city position that we should be taking no position on this bill. So that will be the position of the committee.
And that concludes all of the bills that I have brought before you today.
Okay, our next item is water. So we have Kathy.
Good morning. Used to saying good afternoon. Good morning. Do have one item for you for approval. Senate Bill 23-295, the Colorado River Drought Task Force. That was introduced yesterday morning, and the Water Department is asking for an actively opposed position. This bill does just create a task force and intended to create tools and programs for Colorado River drought resilience. So it has a good meaning behind it, but it dictates the outcomes of the recommendations, and the the task force makeup is not well balanced. So out of 15 positions, there are only 2 Trans Mountain diverter positions out of 15 on the task force. It is very biased and one-sided. The Colorado River is important for the economy and welfare for the entire state, not just the West Slope. And then with the recommendations that the task force is intended to come up with and provide to the legislature by the end of the year, it requires 6 conditions. And one of the 6 conditions is that any recommendation must provide that any program must be operated in a manner that protects existing uses and some reasonable increment of future development in the Colorado River Basin without allowing or protecting a new Trans Mountain diversion. So the city has significant water rights in the Colorado River Basin. We have conditional water rights that we intend to develop, and this is directly harmful to that.
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions for Kathy? And Kathy, you're in support the position of actively opposed to this bill.
Yeah, no questions, and I'm fine with that.
Okay. Okay, Kathy, I have no questions as well, and I also support the actively opposed as well. Do you have any other updates or?
I did not have any updates directly unless there was questions on House Bill 23-1257, the mobile home park.
Yes, I had one on that one. If you could just give me, because I had some questions from some constituents because we do have 12 mobile home parks. So I just wanted to kind of just have you, if you could summarize the position of the city on that.
I can summarize the position of Aurora Water, and we have
sorry.
We have gone back and forth between monitor and oppose if asked, and even discussion about should we be support if asked. We are currently at the monitor position, and initially when the bill was introduced, where we were possibly seeing where we might be oppose if asked is that there was a requirement that if any of the mobile home park that fails to implement a remediation plan would be forfeited to a county. And we were hearing from county members great concern over that paragraph. And so we knew that that was potentially problematic. We were also hearing that whenever you implement a new program, if you're making people responsible for items that they were not previously responsible for, sometimes that has the opposite effect on costs, and where some of those costs then will be passed on to the renters. And so we just didn't quite understand the cost benefit to the actual mobile home park residents. But really then, when we look at it from the Aurora Water Services, when we look at any legislation, it's about how we are able to provide our water, stormwater, and sewer services to our customers. And mostly around finance, infrastructure, and water supply. So does it have a positive effect on being able to keep our rates low? Does it have a positive effect on being able to maintain our infrastructure, or a positive effect on our water supply resilience? You know, and all of these looking at it for today and in the future. And so for a mobile home park, we supply those services up to a master meter. And so beyond the master meter, it's no longer our services. And so really for this mobile home park bill, we were probably never going to take an actively opposed position or an actively support position, because this legislation was aimed at activities on the other side of the master meter.
Okay.
Would you like me to go into more detail?
No, and Councilmember Zvonek, I just had Kathy bring this up because of this mobile home park bill, because I had gotten some inquiries from some constituents about it. Kathy, just a quick question on that. I thought part of the bill, when I was reading the bill, I know we were talking about that part, but some of it was also talking about the pipes, lead pipe testing. So I think that more so was some of the inquiries I got from constituents that live
Okay.
in these mobile home parks. So their focus wasn't so much on this, but that part of the bill.
And this bill really too focused on secondary standards. And so your primary water quality standards are your health and safety standards. So whether that's lead or some of the other constituents. And then
Okay.
your secondary standards is your odor, your taste. And this bill, which the secondary standards are not regulated on any water system. And so
Okay.
this also brought up the potential of CDPHE to start regulating those secondary standards. And it is a big issue. If you open up your tap and it's not clear water,
Mhm.
it can mean different things. And so that is a concern. But as far as the lead, there's if you are a mobile home park and if you are providing water to more than, I think it's 25, then
Mhm.
you are regulated. You're considered a small water system and you're already regulated under CDPHE. And
Okay.
so there was a lot of overlap too that we saw here. But as far as lead, it should be, if somebody has a concern of lead, I think CDPHE and others would help test that water. And even Aurora Water, we helped Aurora Public Schools test all of their facilities. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it did. So that was basically, I appreciate the summary on the bill. I guess the inquiries that I got was basically on the lead piece.
The lead piece.
So that's why I brought that to your attention. I know we're doing a monitoring. We're not asking the committee to take a position, but I just kind of wanted that to be transparent and just kind of bring that out to the public as well, that we just to have that summary. So,
I will too get you what resources are available should you have that question again. So
okay, that would be
I will
great. Just,
follow up.
and it was just because we do have, I think our total number now is 12 mobile home parks. I hope I'm correct on that number. So some of the residents that contacted me live in mobile home parks. So that's where this question came from. So I appreciate that summary. Councilmember Zvonek, I'm sorry, I just kind of went off.
No, that's okay. That's
Do
good to know.
do you
I
have
don't
any
have
questions about the mobile home park?
No, I appreciate that
discussion?
update. Thanks
Okay.
for bringing that up.
Okay. Well, Kathy, thank you so much. If you have no other updates, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, miscellaneous matters for considerations. Do you have anything for our next meeting or anything you want to be looked into?
Nope.
Okay.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes. Hi, George.
This is George Kumantakis for the record. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to clarify on the bill that was no position and then the decision was made to is it actively oppose or oppose if asked? That's what I want to clarify for the record.
Councilmember Zvonek?
Opposed.
Actively
Opposed
oppose?
Opposed if actively opposed, Councilmember Zvonek, or opposed if asked?
Actively opposed.
Okay, actively opposed.
And is Councilmember Jurinsky still on the line? Is that what she wanted as well?
Councilmember Jurinsky, are you on the line? I think she did. I think she agreed with Councilmember Zvonek. Do you need to
Okay.
hear from her verbally
Well,
or?
I just wanted to make it clear. That's
Yeah.
all. If that's what you all believe in, that's fine. I just wanted to make it clear.
Yes.
Okay, for the record.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, George, for that clarification. Councilmember Zvonek, our next meeting is May 5th. This is going to be in person. So are you good with that date and time in person
Yep.
meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
That works.
Right. Well, thank you, Councilmember Zvonek. Thank you, everybody that participated today. I appreciate everyone's, comments, working on all this legislative session. We're almost to the end. It's going to be fast going, though. So thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend. And if we have any other questions or concerns, the committee will reach out to anybody. So thank you. Thank
We're
you very
here.
much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.